Hello and welcome to the Clear Perspective. My name is Alison Lucrucier from Clear Coaching, and I have the honor and pleasure today of interviewing and talking to Dr. Bill Simon on the Clear Perspective Day. How are you doing, Bill?
Fantastic. Thank you. Thanks for having me on. I really appreciate it, Allison.
Oh my gosh, thank you so much for being here today. I know this was a long time coming. We met about 8 months ago now at the Dental Festival in Florida, where we were both judging the speaker competition. And I was so grateful after that event to be able to get to know you, to sit beside you. And I'm going to introduce you in a second, but I love to always introduce my guests from like how I first met you and, how we got to know each other. And Dr. Simon was sitting next to me, and we both of us had to kind of evaluate or judge the speaking competition at Dentistry's Got Talent. And just the ability to be so articulate, so kind, motivating, have such amazing comments and feedback for the speakers was just so inspiring to me. So that's where we really got to connect. And I knew I wanted to, be able to see you speak and of course interview you for the Clear Perspective. So thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you again for having me. My pleasure.
So Dr. Bill Simon is a 1983 graduate of the Southern Illinois University School of Dental Medicine. He's the owner of two practices in Chicago, City Smiles and Sunrise Urbana. Aside from his often described as dramatic career, which included a major office fire, an embezzlement scheme, and a robbery at gunpoint, Dr. Simon maintains an active membership in the Chicago Dental Society, Illinois State Dental Society, the ADA, and is a fellow of the ACD, ICD, and PFA. Dr. Simon currently serves on the CDS Midwinter Meeting Affairs Committee, where I got to see you this year, looking very sharp in the green suit. I loved it. And he's a past president of the CDS Northside branch. Sits on the ISDS Board of Trustees, vice chair of the executive committee, and is the immediate past chair of the ISDS Access to Care Committee. He also serves on the State Illinois Health and Family Service Medicaid Policy Review Committee. Dr. Simon is passionate about mentoring and speaks nationally to dental students and dentists. Wow, I am grateful even more that you have the time to spend with me today in this interview. So let's dig right in. I would love to know, for my first question, something that's really a hot topic in the industry right now, and we can't go anywhere without reading about it, seeing it on social media, on any dental magazine. It's the team. What's happening to the dental team in the industry? During COVID, we've had the kind of mass exodus of team. We have just a lot of doctors talking and struggling with creating a high performing team in their practice. And so just over the course of your career, like I can sense, and I know this about you, that you have so many great leadership skills. So what could you share over the course of your career about creating a great dental team?
Yeah, it's a very interesting time, right? Certainly it is what we've seen emerge from the pandemic with the workforce issues. And gosh, at the legislative level, I see all these different moves happening where dental practice acts are being changed in different ways to allow expanded function, a lot of different things that are trying to be put into place for better or worse to deal with this workforce issue. And certainly the dental industry has been hit very hard, harder than most, and particularly on the dental hygienist side. And when I haven't always been that skilled actually at being a team leader, so to speak, or leadership takes some time to develop. And some of my best teachers when it comes to leadership have actually been my team members. I've learned more from my team members really than any book perhaps that I've read, and I can show some examples of some exit interviews from some team members who decided to, early on in my career where my practice wasn't the place for them, and I asked them certain questions and on the exit interview, and they taught me about as much as what I needed to know about leading people as anything else. For me, when I came out of dental school at a time when it wasn't really all about the team. A dental office was being run. It was all about the patients. The patients are number one. And you would find dental offices where the dentist would be disrespectful, frankly, to their team, even in front of patients, throwing instruments or reprimanding the dental assistant for doing something wrong, et cetera. And I learned very very early on that simply wasn't a good approach towards building a great team. But what I found is that, first of all, the patients aren't number one. For me, I've learned that the team is number one, because you can't accomplish your mission unless you have your team in place. And if your team is not number one, then you're not gonna succeed to the level that you want to succeed. So getting your team to understand that they are the most important part of your practice, for me, has been a very important and valuable learning experience, and a very valuable thing to put in place. And the things that I do to help my team to feel that they are the most important thing is certainly recognizing them for what they do, sharing what each individual section of the office does with other areas of the office. Sometimes we hear about, oh, the front does this and the back does this, or the clinical this, or the front that does that. So we do a very, I would say, good job of helping everybody that's involved on the team to understand that everybody's working hard in one way or another. And they just need to understand that everybody's got their spot, and we all come together as a team, and we get the best results, with the team being number one. The other really, really important thing for me is letting the team have a voice. I make it clear that I'm not here to dictate how this practice is going to be run. As a matter of fact, if I did that, my practice wouldn't be anywhere near as successful as it is. And so we let the team speak. We let the team have a voice, and we do whatever we can to help the team to feel a sense of ownership and a stake in the success of the practice, and understanding certainly why we're all here doing what we do, and in other words, the mission, or the big why, if you want to call it, of the practice. As long as we have all worked together to establish that mission, and we're all on the bus together, that's how we roll.
Oh, I love that. You just dropped so many different gems in like one statement. And it shows like there's this idea of like kind of being a humble leader. And it sounds so much that you acknowledge your team, you let them have their own vision for like what is their role in the practice, how do they contribute. And I know that, as a professional coach, when I see teams operate that way, that's when they're the most successful. The other thing that I love that you said was that you haven't always been this way. And so for any doctor that's, watching this or listening, if you aren't feeling like you're a good leader today, that's okay, because guess what? We get to learn. And something that I always love to remind my docs is that you guys didn't go to school to take specific leadership skills. And so coming out as a dentist and needing to run a practice as a business owner and then lead a team sometimes can be very overwhelming. So what were like some of the kind of mind shifts that you had that you recognized that leadership was a really important part of the practice?
Well, certainly when I would have different team members leaving for one reason or another, and pointing to specific behaviors of mine that weren't in the best interest of the practice or the patients or the team in particular. So that was a big learning experience, I would say. Like I said, I learned as much from my team members as anywhere. But and again, like we just said, I early on, I didn't know what I was doing. I was just like probably most dentists coming out of dental school. And I always say that, what you did prior to dental school has a big influence on your career. Yeah. So perhaps if you were a dental assistant, or you were a dental hygienist, and then you decided to go to dental school, maybe you got a leg up on things. If you did a GPR or an AEGD, maybe you got a leg up on things. Or how about if your mom or your dad or a close family member, let's say a parent was a dentist. Well, geez, you probably hit the ground running. Well, maybe not, right? Maybe that actually stunted your growth, because if your parents weren't progressive, and that parent owner was still running the practice the same way in 2020, the way they were in 1990, then it might have stunted your growth. But for me, it was really just not having a lot behind me. I didn't have family members in dentistry. I didn't really know much of anything coming out of dental school. So it was a big learning curve for me. And getting to a point where you learn from your team and you learn from your mistakes, it goes a long way towards helping with the leadership skills. And then you've got to work at it. You really have to work at it. It just doesn't happen. So you have to you have to talk, mostly you have to listen. You have to
Hmm.
listen. And then there's a few books I've read over time that have been really influential for me. And I bring these up in my lectures all the time. And uh, for me, Simon Sinek is one of my
Yes.
favorite leadership
Yeah.
writers. And so he's Simon Sinek. I just don't want people to call me Simon the Cynic, no, but that's a kind of a joke. But Simon Sinek, his book, Leaders Eat Last, was one of the
Hmm.
most uh, influential books for me when it came to leadership. And then I've read other books, a lot about customer service. Raving Fans by Ken Blanchard was a big one for me. There's a book by Danny Meyer, a restaurateur in New York who owns some of the bigger, a large restaurant chain in New York. It's called Setting the Table. It's
Yeah.
all about leadership skills, and you got to just uh, a Nice Bike by Mark Schoenbrook is another book that just reading and staying up with all of that, or listening to podcasts for leadership,
Hmm.
whatever it takes. You just got to keep working at it.
Yeah, 100%. And now I think the information is so accessible, and you can, if there's a certain skill set that you can see, and I love that you use the example of like learning from your team, learning from mistakes, and then applying that. Okay, this is what I need to maybe work on. Where can I find that information and actually learn the new skill set to be able to move it forward? And today we can access that information essentially anywhere. So anybody can really learn how to be a leader. It's not expensive, it's not difficult. It's just like actually understanding the principles. So I want to understand you a little bit more because you do a lot of things outside of your dental practice. And so one of the things I'm really interested in is what makes you so excited, and why do you get so much satisfaction on mentoring new dentists?
Well, I think for me, as you read in my bio, my career has been rather what's been called dramatic. I've been through a major office fire where we were in the street, and we
Wow.
came together, and within 3 months of the fire, we were in a temporary location and just hitting on all cylinders. But I couldn't have done that without my team. So that some of the experiences that I've had early on, getting robbed at gunpoint with my team was another thing, and you just start to learn about uh, how important these people you're surrounded by are, and I've just used those. I don't suggest that everybody go out and have an office fire or anything like that, but just some of the challenges that I've experienced, and some of the things that have come out of that, and then being in a position where I've been able to help so many people with my dentistry and my team actually in different facets of their life has put me in a position where you just get this feeling you just want to give back. You just want
Hmm.
to give back to help others to enjoy some of the successes that I have. And I've been fortunate enough to have an operation where now I have things pretty well in hand with the people that surround me. So I can then
Yeah.
focus on doing other things to give back to my team, to give back to the profession, and work to protect the profession in various ways, and
Hmm.
mostly mentor and teach dentists to hopefully avoid some of the mistakes that I made.
Yeah, that's so good. Something that I think is really key with this is that you have built and developed a team that allows you to focus on other things outside of just putting out fires literally in the office, and needing to focus your energy on just like small fires in practice, or working towards getting your team to get along, or any of these things that most people are struggling with when it comes to their team right now. And so I think it's so important that you put it that time investment in, you get those leadership skills, you build that quality team so that you can, focus what you've done and make an even bigger impact outside the practice, because your focus isn't narrowed into just what you're doing in your office. And so I love that. And I find it so interesting. Like I can't imagine the conversations that you have in some of these organizations. Being a part of the biggest dental meeting is the Chicago Midwinter, the biggest dental meeting in North America. Is that true?
If it's not, it's one of them, but I believe it is. Our we've peaked out I think our highest attendance was on the edge of 30,000. So I believe we're the largest.
Yeah, that's incredible. So I can't even imagine some of the conversations that you're having in these rooms and planning for these like really iconic foundational events in North America, and if not the world. And so like when you look at your career in dentistry and everything that you've done and all of the places that you've been, what do you see that you could share with others that, are in the field and would be something maybe surprising that they wouldn't know or something that would be helpful for them?
Are you talking specifically about dentists, or are you talking about just generally speaking in the field of dentistry, or?
Yeah, like I would say generally in the field of dentistry.
Well, I think that we have a profession where we provide people with improvement of their quality of life, self-esteem. We relieve their pain. We do things for people that not a lot of people have the opportunity to do.
Hmm.
And I feel very, very fortunate to be in a position to do that. And I think that all of us in dentistry should feel the same. We're not, I don't want to take anything away from somebody who works in a restaurant, but we're not serving French fries, for crying out loud. I go into a restaurant, and while I sit there in amazement and see some of the operations that go on in restaurants where they're bringing people in and they're seating them, they're serving them, all this food is being pushed out, and then you walk out, the next people are seated, and it's like this choreography, and it amazes me. And I say to myself, wow, how do they do this? But then I sit there and I say, you know what? How do us dental offices do what we do? Because
Yeah.
frankly, it's a lot more complicated than serving food. And we're
Yeah.
doing actually surgery on an outpatient basis. Dentistry kind of came in from the right field, so to speak. Dentistry was excluded from healthcare very early on in the late 1800s. Medicine went one way, and dentistry was looked at almost as a trade. Really, the
Hmm.
barbers were doing dentistry. So we've had to work our way back into that place of being considered for the oral systemic link and the importance of
Yeah.
oral health in your overall health. And so we are in a really, really wonderful position to help impact people's lives like that. And if you're on a team that everybody's on the bus, now there's another book out there called something on the bus. Another book I read about getting the team, everybody on the bus. But if everybody's on the bus driving this bus with the same mission, and in our office, the values are also important. We have a set of core values that we established as a team. But if we're all driving that ship or that bus in the same direction and creating these benefits for other people, that's what I think that anybody in dentistry can hang their hat on. And I always say, if you're in a dental office, whether you're the dentist, whether you're the one of the team members, whatever it is, and you're not getting that kind of satisfaction, move. Go find
Hmm.
someplace else that you can find it, because there's plenty of dental offices out there that can provide that for you.
Yes, 100%. And it's good to remember that. I think because in dentistry, we're focused on small things all day long, very tiny, spaces. I always think it's so important to zoom out and remember, like, why are we here? What are we doing? How are we actually serving our patients? And feeling really proud of that and acknowledging ourselves for the challenging work that we do that is so, so rewarding. So I'm curious, like in your entire career, what has been one of the biggest shifts that you've seen? Like something maybe that surprised you from the time you started dentistry to today in our very, very fast-paced digital world that's continuing to evolve faster and faster with AI, all of this technology. Like what did you maybe not expect when you got into this industry? And what was the biggest shift that you've seen in your career?
Well, for me, I always say it's a marathon, not a sprint. And it really is. And for all the younger viewers out there, just know that you just keep moving along, and you keep gathering new information. And as you go forward, your perspective changes and your experience grows. And when you get to the point, but I'm almost 40 years in now. I'll be 40 years as a dentist in August. And
Wow.
so for me, I've been in an interesting place, because I've had the perspective of seeing dentistry now change for 40 years. And how I
Hmm.
practice now, as compared to when I got out of dental school, it is night and day. Two completely different. It's apples and oranges. And so, I think the only thing I still use, and I don't even use it that much, is maybe a Toppelmeyer matrix band, and maybe that's the only
Yeah.
thing that still is hanging around. Maybe Dykel, although we don't even, you know, but the changes that have gone on in the industry, particularly in response to the growing technology, are the things that I have found to be most impactful. We computerized our office in 1992, and then we went into digital X-ray and the digital components around 1997. So we've watched all these different technologies come into play, and one of the things that I've been challenged with to some degree is staying relevant. Change happens. Change is not linear. Change is exponential.
Yeah.
In our society, in our day and age today. And so what you see is that the change happens more and more rapidly, and it's gets a little bit more difficult to stay on top of that. And in some ways, that's why you see DSOs emerging, because there's just so much to manage. There's so many different technologies, so many different regulations, so many different things that have to be done to own and manage a dental practice, that it becomes more and more challenging. So see I would say the breadth, the expanse of what has to be managed to run a dental practice today is more than anything, more than the clinical practice. That is probably the most the biggest shift that I've seen. And again, that's why you see dental service organizations emerging, because there's a place for them. And I'll always say, there's good DSOs and there's bad DSOs. There's good independent dentists and there's bad independent dentists. They're all there. They all have a purpose, and they all serve a purpose. But how you want to approach it is up to you.
Yeah, that makes a ton of sense. I like that. I like that perspective a lot. And it's true. It's I can't tell you how many times I get on a call with one of my dental clients or a dentist I know, and they're just like, I just really want to do dentistry. Like, I really just want to do dentistry. But there's this huge other kind of expanded function of a dental entrepreneur. And that is something that I don't know if people know when they get into it. It's like, you're actually an entrepreneur, and you're a leader, and you're a business owner and a dentist. And it's a lot. It's a lot for dentists. And so if we could kind of like look ahead to look back, and all of this is said and done, and you're looking back on your life, and you're like, okay, wow, like I really did make the impact that I wanted to make. Like I know that you are a very like service oriented person. You're always doing things to give back to the community, to the dental world. What would you say is going to be the thing that mattered the most to you at the end of all of this?
That's a deep question right there. What would be well, certainly that I took care of my family. Always number one. Family number one. And I'd say that I've done a pretty decent job there. So taking care of my family, number one. And then number two would be, did I serve my team well? Did they all get the opportunities that they wanted to build on, the growth and development that they sought when they came to work for us? And it's not always money. People aren't always working just for money. There's other rewards that come out of doing what we do. So, but in some cases it might be money. And so for those that it is money, I hope I serve them well too. But serving my team and helping them to get where they needed to go. And then lastly, of course, knowing that our patients have been well taken care of, that our patients receive good quality dentistry, good health care from us in a way that we utilize the best technologies and the best approaches towards their optimal health care.
I love that. And I did not prepare you for that question at all. And I know I just kind of gave you a really tough, deep question. It's a beautiful answer. And so I honestly feel like you are just a wealth of knowledge. And I would encourage, if anybody, wants to talk to Dr. Simon, reach out to him. I'm going to leave his, the website for his practices. Go and check out his practices, and then LinkedIn, Facebook. I'm going to leave that all below. And then of course, www.newdentistadvisor.com. You're new in the industry and you need to talk to somebody that has amazing experience, knowledge, values, and a mission. Go and reach out to Dr. Simon. So I want to thank you so much for your time today on the Clear Perspective. This was a really wonderful perspective that we got today. And I just want to thank you for your time, and it's just honored to have you here on the podcast.
Thanks for having me, Allison. It really has been a pleasure. And anything you might need or anybody needs, just feel free to reach out. I'm happy to help.
Amazing. Thank you so much.
All right. Bye-bye.